The wind cut through the open plains like 1,000 icy knives, bending the tall prairie grass under its relentless force. Snow fell in thick, blinding sheets, obscuring everything beyond a few feet. At the edge of the frozen forest, a lone figure pressed forward against the storm. Her hat brim was coated with frost, and her leather gloves were stiff and cracked from the bitter cold. Her name was Clara Monroe, a cowgirl known among her neighbors not for bravado or showmanship, but for an unshakable courage that had been forged by years of hard work and long winters on her family's ranch. She had been checking on her livestock when the storm struck, an unexpected blizzard that came faster than any weather report had predicted. The temperature plummeted, and the snowstorm reduced visibility to near zero. Horses whinnied nervously in the barn as Clara secured their stalls, but something deep in the forest drew her attention. A faint, desperate cry carried on the wind at first. She thought it might be her imagination. Yet the cries grew louder, more urgent, and filled with fear. Without hesitation, Clara grabbed her thick coat, wrapped a scarf tightly around her face, and mounted her horse, Midnight. The animal's hooves sank into snowdrifts higher than Clara had anticipated, but she pressed onward, guided by the sound of those plaintive cries. Hours seemed to pass as the blizzard raged around her. Trees bent and groaned under the weight of ice, and each step forward felt like a battle against nature itself. Finally, through the swirling white, Clara saw them. Two young Sioux girls, no older than 10 and 8, huddled together against a fallen tree, their small frames shivering violently. Their faces were streaked with tears and frostbite, their blankets long gone, swept away by the storm. Clara didn't hesitate. She dismounted, brushing the snow from her coat, and knelt beside them. "It's all right, girls," she called softly, though the wind carried her voice away. "I've got you now. You're safe." The older girl looked up at her with wide, fearful eyes. "Our mother, she went to find food," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "We can't find her." Clara's heart ached. She had faced harsh winters and seen many hardships on the ranch, but the vulnerability in those children struck her deeper than any personal struggle ever could. She pulled them close, sharing her own coat and wrapping them in whatever warmth she could muster. "We'll get her back," she promised. "I won't leave you alone. Not ever." The ride back to the ranch was treacherous. The snow obscured every landmark, and Clara had to rely on instinct and memory to guide them home. At one point, the older girl, Emma, slipped from her grasp, nearly disappearing into a snowdrift. Clara's heart stopped for a moment before she scooped her up, whispering encouragements as Midnight trudged through the knee-deep snow. By the time they reached Clara's cabin, night had fallen, and the storm was relentless. She carried the girls inside, laying them before the roaring fire. She removed their wet, frozen clothing and wrapped them in thick blankets, feeding them warm broth until their shivering subsided. Slowly, color returned to their cheeks, and their eyes, once filled with fear, began to glimmer with gratitude as the storm raged outside. Clara learned more about the girls. They were daughters of a Sioux family who had been hunting near the plains when the blizzard struck unexpectedly. Their mother had ventured out to seek help, but in the chaos, the children had become separated. They had wandered for hours, alone and terrified, before fate led them to Clara. The next morning, the snow had stopped, leaving a crystalline world glistening under the pale sun. Clara and the girls set out to find their mother, who, thankfully, had survived and was searching frantically for them. The reunion was emotional. Tears, embraces, and whispered prayers of thanks. The mother clasped Clara's hands in gratitude, her eyes brimming with respect. "You have saved my daughters' lives," she said. "We are forever in your debt." Word of Clara's bravery spread quickly through the neighboring communities. By the following week, a rider approached her ranch with news that left her stunned. The chief of the Sioux tribe, a man of quiet dignity and deep respect, was on his way to see her personally. Clara, never one to seek accolades, was taken aback. She had acted out of instinct and compassion, never imagining such recognition would follow. When the chief arrived, flanked by several elders, Clara greeted him with cautious respect. The chief's eyes, sharp yet kind, studied her for a long moment. Then he stepped forward, extending a carved wooden medallion in her direction. "For your courage, your selflessness, and the protection you gave to our children," he said, his voice steady and resonant. "We honor you." Clara felt a lump in her throat. She had never thought of herself as a hero. To her, she had simply done what anyone would do to save children in danger. But in that moment, standing before a chief whose people had faced countless trials and endured through generations, she realized the magnitude of her actions. This is the first third of the story. It establishes the storm, Clara's courage, the children's vulnerability, the emotional connection, and sets up the chief's arrival. I can continue with the second part, including the chief's gift of honor and its cultural significance, Clara's reflection and the unexpected lesson she learns, the emotional climax and heartwarming resolution.